Just tell me what happens the day the floods happen. What happened to your restaurant?
Well, as I live above it, it was about 5:30 in the morning, and my neighbour from 2 doors down, there was this banging and banging on the door, and I thought, oh my God, so I never come down, so I just opened up my windows, and he's standing there, and his feet are in water, and he said, Leslie, I think we're in trouble, because normally we do have floods, because it's a floodplain, but they normally stay that side of the road, and slowly but surely it was coming across the road. And at that time, the pavement was being done as well. So luckily, there were lots of sand there. So we broke down the barrier, got all sorts of plastic bags. We tried to sandbag the front because we could see it was coming up. This was about 6:30, 7 o'clock. It actually started to lap over here. It actually only came about over the pavement about 2 inches, and we could have kept it out, but unfortunately, as we have a basement, it was 2 inches, but 8 foot, an 8-foot indoor swimming pool. So that was a bit of a disaster, and then we didn't really quite know what to do. We didn't know it was coming at all. It was a complete surprise.
So what happened in the week after that for your business? What happens to try and rectify the situation?
Well, actually, in all fairness, first of all, we didn't have any water and electricity. Of course, everything went out, and the water board, the Severn Trent Water, were very good, and we were also contacted immediately by, I'm not quite sure who they were. It wasn't the council, but it was some government agency with emergency money if you needed it. They just came and had a look. It was a simple piece of paper. It wasn't loads and loads and loads of things to fill in. It was very, very simple. But unfortunately, because everybody was affected, we had a great deal of trouble getting builders and things. And of course, when the builders did come in, they they did very well. And it took 6 weeks just to dry the place out because it's so old, and to get the basement dried and everything, and then it all had to be dug out because it was foul water. We had to replace all the floors, all the plaster fell off the walls. We were closed until November. Some places were closed for even longer, but we managed to get open by November, but it was pretty hard going. And it was very quiet around here for a while.
Just tell me about the insurance as well.
Well, I was lucky because I had a good insurance company, and I was covered for loss of profits and everything. So all the time I was closed, I was covered for the basic outgoing. So it didn't actually cost me any money, which was fortunate. But a lot of people, if you didn't have a good insurance, it was very good.
So if, God forbid,
no,
this
now.
so you couldn't get insured now?
No, I couldn't get. I think some people have managed to, but I'm self-insuring for a few years because I was paying about £1,500 to insure it, and I got a quote of £7,000, for insurance for a year. I mean, that was completely out of the question. So I'm merely a self-insurer now. I would say in some ways it did me a favour. In other ways, if I wanted to sell, I'd probably have to forget it for the next 5 or 6 years, because the first thing anyone asks is, did you flood? So we just have to keep our fingers crossed.
So you've heard anecdotally from several people in Tewkesbury, they're having problems in getting insurance cover since 2007.
That's right. Like Leslie, who we spoke to earlier, unfortunately, since the major flooding event in 2007, it has become more difficult to purchase insurance for both business premises and homes. And where policies have been available, significantly more expensive than in the past.
So this is a massive challenge going forward for not just the insurance market, but for the whole country and the government to look at.
Well, that's right. As you can imagine, insurance companies spent a significant amount of money. In fact, it was around £2.2 billion spent in 2007 on flood restoration. That's both here in Tewkesbury and in Hull, that was flooded as well that year. And therefore the insurance industry is looking to the government to assist them with helping avoid those sorts of expenses in the future. There's an agreement in place between the government and the insurance industry called the Statement of Principles, which, put in simple terms, is an agreement which states that the insurance industry will continue to provide flood cover as long as the government continue to spend money on flood defences. Now, unfortunately, in the economic climate that we're in, the government are having to reduce what they're spending across the board, and flood defence, unfortunately, is one of those areas that could be hit by spending cuts, and therefore, potentially, this statement of principles could lapse this year, which would mean insurance companies would stop providing flood insurance, and therefore we would see many more people like Leslie who are finding it difficult to find insurance. Some reports suggest up to 150,000 homes and properties in the UK would be uninsurable against flood damage if the statement of principles lapses.
So we've looked back 5 years to see how Tewkesbury was devastated by the flooding, and looked also at what is happening today with how the restoration industry has changed and some of the problems facing people in finding insurance cover. So the question is, if an event like 2007 happens again, how will communities cope, and what needs to happen to help people put their lives back together?